Good evening and welcome to the 2024 Stockton Mayoral Debate. It's being brought to you by Stocktonia News Group in conjunction with Central Valley TV and the students and faculty here at San Joaquin Delta College, part of their digital media department. I'm your moderator, Tim Daly. We are meeting tonight at Delta College's digital media studio, where 5 of the 6 announced candidates for mayor will discuss issues including city management, homelessness, public safety, and the equity and equality in one of the most diverse cities in the nation. Now, this is all happening prior to the primary elections, which will happen on March 5th. So we have rules for tonight's debate. First of all, each participant will have a 1-minute opening and closing statement. Each will be allotted 90 seconds to respond to questions. Now, if a candidate addresses or mentions one of his or her opponents, then that candidate will get 30 seconds to respond. Now, the order of candidates was established by a random draw before the debate. The questions will be answered from left to right, and we should say that the gentleman on the far left will take the first question, Ms. Fugazi will take the second, etc. That way everybody gets either start with answers or be the last one to answer, making it as fair as possible. We should point out that San Joaquin County Supervisor Tom Patty originally did commit to tonight's event, but he informed us last night that he will not be attending. So I'm going to step out of the way and introduce you now to tonight's participants. Once again, on the far left, you're looking at City Council member and educator Dan Wright. Next is educator and former Vice Mayor Christina Fugazi. In the middle is local business person and social worker Shaquille Ahmad. Then we have nonprofit founder and community advocate Jessica Velez. And finally, nonprofit director and former city council member Jesus Andrade. First of all, everybody, thank you very much for being here on what was a rainy day, so we appreciate your participation. We want to cover a number of topics tonight, and we're going to start with managing, we're going to start with your opening statements. I've already almost mangled the whole thing. We're going to start with your opening statements. Dan Wright, once again, you will go first, and you have 60 seconds for your opening statement.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you to everyone who's watching this. Thank you, Tim, and thank you to everyone who's watching this on CVTV. I've been preparing for this my entire professional career. I was a school administrator for 25 years. People trusted me with their children. The district trusted me with their money. Then I've served 9 years on the Stockton City Council. It's longer than anyone on this dais. So people will ask, you served 9 years, how have you done? And I'll say, the results are mixed. We're not a rich city, so we have to make decisions. But when you look at us, are we fiscally healthy? Yes, we are. Truth in Accounting consistently rates us among the 10 highest fiscally healthy cities in the United States. That streak will not end under my leadership. My endorsers include State Senator Susan Eggman, former Congressman Jerry McNerney, a multitude of other electeds and labor unions in our city. Thank you.
Mr. Wright, thank you. Christina Fugazi.
Yes, I stand here tonight not as a politician, but as a dedicated servant of education and community. I come from a humble background of service where the cornerstone of my professional life has been the empowerment of young minds. My journey began as a young teacher, which truly defined my commitment to make a real difference. I've worked tirelessly to bridge the gap between aspiration and reality. I've always recognized the potential of these young individuals, but it was my mission to turn that potential into success. My dedication has gone beyond. I've visited homes, I've sat at dining room tables, I've worked hand in hand with our youth and their parents, including those that are non-English speaking, helping them understand the importance of education and take advantage of opportunities before them. Our youth are my guiding star and should be for everything we do in this city.
Thank you very much. Shaquille Ahmad.
Thank you very much. My name is Shaquille Ahmed, and I'm running for City of Stockton Mayor. I'm a social worker and a businessman. I spent almost 20 years in business and a professional social worker. I've helped a lot of families individually and in my community. Right now, I just thought about running for City of Stockton mayor because I know that the community needs my help, and for that, I'm in the race right now. I have a lot of knowledge about working with the community, with different people. I work with diverse communities, so I mean that's not an issue for me working with them. And I just want to be like a bridge between between the residents and the city officials, and working hand in hand for the betterment of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica Velez.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Velez. I am a mother and a grandmother. I have 3 daughters, and I have worked as a paralegal for 25 years. 10 of those years, I worked in a corporate law firm with high-powered attorneys. Quite a difficult work environment at times, but with that experience, I believe that has prepared me to be able to deal with different personalities on council, on county supervisors, and of course our city manager as well. I have been working in the nonprofit sector for homeless solutions for the past 3 years, and have been able to get 44 households housed in those 3 years. I have a boots on the ground knowledge of what is afflicting our streets right now with regard to crime, homelessness, and the drug addiction. And I decided that after fighting in the streets for this past 3 years, I wanted to have a seat at the table to try to make change in Stockton. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. And finally, with our opening statements, Jesus Andrade.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you to the organizers for putting this together. Jesus Andrade, running for mayor, former City of Stockton council member, and I have dedicated my life to public service since graduating from Sac State. I have worked in numerous organizations, national organizations, statewide organizations, even worked in the presidential campaign in 2008. But all through that, I gained the skills and passion to be able to come back to my community and really make a difference. And that hasn't changed since leaving the council. We started a community development corporation, which is an organization that looks to redevelop old areas of Stockton, starting from downtown, the east side, south side, west side, all the way up north. And so my passion to the city has never wavered, and I'm running because I have unfinished business. And again, my passion hasn't wavered, and so running for mayor.
Very good. Thanks to all of you. So we're going to start with probably the biggest picture question of all. And once again, we'll start at the far left. Dan Wright. Day one, what is your top priority?
So on day one, the most important thing is to understand the role of the mayor. The role of the mayor in Stockton is not an autocrat. We don't have this ability to just make things happen.
Mike? Yep. Thank you,
You
Jessica.
got to have the mic up here for me. I'll start over?
Sure.
Okay.
That's fine.
So on day one, the most important thing is that I understand the role of the mayor. Stockton does not have a strong mayor system. One of the most important things we have to do is know what powers we do have. The most important power we do have is the bully pulpit here in Stockton. We have connections that we can make with people in state and federal government that we have to use. We have to get those priorities stated. There are certain things that have not been accomplished that have been paid for, and my job on day one is to find out why that hasn't happened. We have several projects that we have spent millions of dollars on. The Navigation Center at the Stockton Shelter for the Homeless. We have the unfinished Stockton City Hall. We have the Pathways Project at St. Mary's Dining Room. All of those are not yet finished, and they need to be. City Hall may be finished before the new mayor comes on, but those other 2 projects, I'd want to know why they haven't been completed yet. Okay, that would be one thing. The other thing is I would call the governor right away. As a member of the City of Stockton, as a mayor of the City of Stockton, I'm a member of the Big City Mayors Coalition. And you have to use that. You have to exploit everything that comes with that. The governor has to know we're one of the 11th largest city in the state, and we're not getting resources equivalent to that. So if the governor doesn't take my call, I'll go sit outside of his office until he finds the time to speak to me. Thank you.
Very good. Thanks, Dan. Christina Fugazi, day one, what is your top priority? You've been elected mayor.
So day one, I plan to meet with the city manager, the city attorney, the city clerk. I would say also our auditor, but that is somebody that is a group, firm that we've hired. And also I would schedule a meeting with our CFO, Kimberly Trammell, because I really want to make sure that I understand what is going on at that point in the city that I might be missing. I also want to be able to share what my vision is and what my goals and policies that I would like to work towards. Because without them, without those appointed individuals, knowing what council wants and knowing what the mayor wants, then they are flying blind. So it's very important. The other thing is fostering open dialogue. I also want to schedule one-on-one meetings with the councilors, especially the new ones, just to get a feel for what they believe are the biggest issues in their areas. And then from there, meeting with the chief of police, looking at our retention as well as our recruitment efforts, because if we don't have a safe city, then we're doing all of this work for what? So we have to be, it has to be safe for you, it has to be safe for me, it has to be safe for everyone in the city. So that's what I would be doing. The first day would be a lot of meetings, which, you know, I'm kind of accustomed to now as an assistant principal. But I really think that sets the stage, the tone, and the table for how we move in the future.
Very good. Thank you. Shaquille Ahmad, on day one of your administration, what's your top priority?
On day first, you know, what I will do is, you know, I'll just gather all the info about the whole city. I'll just have all the stakeholders of the city, try to have a meeting with them, with the council members, with the city manager, with everyone who is involved, you know, in the upbringing of the city. So I'll see, you know, what kind of, let's say, problems we have in the city, and we'll just gather them together and try to have a solution for them. Like all these big problems like homelessness, housing, youth, all these things we need to focus on. My priority is going to be, I'll focus on the youth programs a lot, because like if you are building a building, you know, you need a strong foundation for that. And our youth is our foundation. So, I mean, if we have a strong foundation for our youth, I mean, all these youth, they're not going to go nowhere else but education, positive skills, and all these things. If you work on the youth and the youth are good, then what we'll have is, you know, like a strong community full of good people, and we won't have that many crimes in our society. So that's what I will do. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, sir. Jessica Velez.
So day one, what I see as an issue currently is a lack of communication, and that is across the board with city and county political leaders. What I feel that needs to happen is having everyone that's involved in council, the city manager, and all of the top agency leads with regard to police or even their child protective services, probation, all of these different agencies, having a meeting to get on the same page as to what the direction for Stockton needs to be. Over the course of the past 3 years, I've been involved very deeply with all of these agencies on a daily basis, and being able to see where we are lacking, where we could do better, making people accountable. That also transfers over into accountability and funding. As discussed previously, the Stockton Shelter and St. Mary's projects, those two projects are still unfinished, which has left our homeless with no outlet. One of my top priorities on day one is to start, well, actually, I'm already starting it, transitional village for our homeless so that they can gain stability, because not all of them are on drugs and not all of them are mentally ill. So we need to do something immediately to start supporting that demographic. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Jesus Andrade. Day one, what's your top priority?
So day one, I've ran a very grassroots campaign, received a lot of community support from all sides of town, different civic leaders. And so one of the things I want to do is actually bring the community, people that I've talked to, people that I've worked with over the years as a council member and through other organizations, into a room to speak with us, city leaders, that includes council members, and also a city manager. I think it's important that we hear from community members because they are the important piece of all this. One of the things I want to do is I want to bring back a youth commission to the city of Stockton. We've been missing the pivotal, important voice when it comes to youth. And the other thing that I want to bring back is task force. We have been missing out on task force. There's important issues, and we don't have all the answers as city staff or elected officials, but we have experts in fields, experts in the community, experts with policy that understand that they can work with us when it comes to housing, when it comes to workforce, when it comes to youth. So I want to be able to bring a meeting together where we can have a city manager and we can have elected officials, particularly council members, in the meeting. And I think it's also going to be important to set the tone for the first 100 days. I've been working on a plan that is community informed, that is going to tackle the issues, 7 issues that I have here in the first 100 days. And that's critical because we have to work with what we have. Stockton's been around for 172 years. There's a culture there that we have to work with. But beyond the 100 days, now we start to work on creating the city that we want and really looking at changing systems when we have these victories that we need within the first 100 days.
All right, thank you all very much for that first question. The second question, we stay within city government. It's kind of a two-part question. How do you perceive the relationship between the mayor and the city manager, the positions, not the personalities? But the second part of that question is, what is your opinion of the performance of the current city manager? Once again, you'll each have 90 seconds, and this time, Ms. Fugazi, we'll start with you.
What the public needs to truly understand is the form of government we have in Stockton, which is the mayor doesn't have ultimate omnipotent power to make decisions in this city. It is the city manager, however, that carries out the day-to-day duties. So I would say that having a relationship, a strong relationship with whoever is the city manager is essential in order to carry out the wishes of council, be it through the priority setting, be it through policy making. All of that flows through the city manager. So it's very important that there is a close working relationship with council, including the mayor and the city manager. As far as our city manager, the current one, I would say that there are definitely areas in which Mr. Black is very strong. He is very strong with his performance in data analytics. He's very strong in meeting with community members and building and fostering those relationships, which isn't something that we've had before. So it is essential, though, as I go back, that we have open communication, a good working relationship, and that is the only way we're going to be able to push that vision and move policy forward.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ahmad.
My opinion on that is the city manager and the mayor, they have to work together. So for that, they have to sit down, just for the sake of the community, for sake of Stocktonians. It's not between like if they have something going on or the city mayor or the manager or the other officials have something going on between themselves, because this is a public service, So where they can just sit down and work on some positive things, positive stuff for the city. It's not like they will just have, if they have something going on, let's say if they're not agreeing on policies or something, they should, consult the council members, the other members of the city. So to just bring some harmony to the city. Because the thing is right now, honestly speaking, you're asking that whether the manager or the city, the mayor, whether they're working their way or not. The thing is, I don't see any progress right now. So in order to see some progress, all these things have to be, these issues have to be done with. It's not like only just, we're just talking, and we don't see any practical work. So it's basically like we're just working on all the issues. We're just talking about the issues, but practically we're not doing anything about it. So my thing is just practical work and less talk, practical work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Velez.
So the position of the city manager currently is he is basically at the top of the hierarchy. The mayor, just another vote on the city council, but with also the power to influence different direction in policy and what the community wants to see. I think that bringing the people back into the equation and enabling them or allowing them to feel like they have a place at the table and their voices are being heard is something that the city manager has already done, and I speak from experience with that. I am appreciative for the openness that he has had with regard to what I've gone through with my agency, Red Rabbit. He's been a voice of reason at times and understanding the process of politics. I think that one of the issues is the communication. As I stated before, we all communicate differently. We all receive information differently. And instead of just creating a stalemate or a roadblock because you're not understanding how the other person is communicating, we need to really work on that more. One thing that I know he does with the city council members is, bring them in and sit down and what is it that you need for your district? So I think that is very important. But at the same time, being strong in what the city wants, what the people want. And that's what my mission would be with working with the city manager.
Thank you very much. Mr. Andrade.
All right. Yeah, so I think Ms. Fugazi already alluded to this, and I'll just build off of that. This is not a strong mayor city. We're not the king. We don't have the authority to just snap our fingers and things get done. We have to work in conjunction with the city manager and city staff. We're not Los Angeles, Fresno, all these other cities. But there's a lot of work that can be done, right? And I will say this. The mayor of Stockton probably has the highest expectations of all elected positions in the county. I would even say Central Valley, because of the pressure and also the expectation that voters have that we should be able to do stuff. And there are ways of getting things done, and that's through coalition. That's through working with your council members. That's through working with the community, civic leaders, business leaders, and also working with city staff, like I mentioned earlier. I will say this. I was part of the council that brought on Mr. Harry back in 2019, I believe it was. And it was an important decision that we made during that time. I think he's done a great job. I think he's been handcuffed to really showcase his skills, which is around economic development, which is why we wanted him here, right? He's worked in big cities. He's seen what needs to happen to make things happen in a city like Stockton, but he's just been handcuffed. So he's going to need a mayor that can work with him, a mayor that's going to provide a vision, a mayor that's going to provide guidance, and also, be able to work with him to be able to move some of these things that need to happen, which again is economic development. We have issues of crime, homelessness. These are issues that big cities are dealing with. But what we're missing in Stockton is a robust economic development plan with real investment into our city.
Very good. Thank you. And finally, far left there, Carlos. Mr. Wright.
Thank you. So as everyone has already stated, this is not a strong mayor city. We are a council manager form of government. That means the 7-person council hires the contract employees, the city manager, the city attorney, the city clerk, and the internal auditor. So when it comes down to our current city manager, I will say this, as I'd say for any city manager, it is always a ledger that you're looking at. Do the benefits outweigh the downsides? And right now I can tell you that Harry Manager's ledger is extremely heavily weighted to the positive. And that's not just me saying that. I mean, he's out in the public and he's meeting with the members of the community. That was an issue with previous city managers. They had to come to City Hall to meet with the managers. But Harry Black will get out and he'll meet with anyone. He'll work with the developers. He'll work with the nonprofit community. I think Ms. Velez talked about how he's done outreach to the nonprofit community, and he's set up some good systems for them as well. It's the most important thing our city manager can do, though, is watch those reserves and make sure that we are not putting ourselves in another situation where we fall into bankruptcy because we didn't guard for our pension shortfalls. And Harry is doing that job exceptionally well. Thank you.
Thank you all very much for that. Our next topic is going to be corruption at City Hall. It's part of a recent discussion amongst candidates. It's also, I think, part of an ongoing platform and campaign for a couple of you. So let's talk about the possibility of corruption at City Hall and undue influence in local government. Mr. Ahmad, we'll start with you. Your thoughts, please, on those topics.
Corruption is, I would say this is corruption is like the root cause of evils, If we don't control corruption, then we can't prosper. All that's you're right about it. You know, this is the right now. This issue. It's been raising all over. Like I'm from a lower, basically like from a lower middle class. When I go out, talk to people, everybody's saying this, that the city is getting millions and millions of dollars. I mean, when they Google stuff up, you know, for the homeless people, for housing, for all these things. And that was the thing they drove me in this race also, that where that money is going. I mean, like we got like millions of dollars for the homeless people, and you see all these homeless people out there on the streets. So my question is, you know, like where that money goes. So corruption is the root evil. You know, we have to eliminate corruption or just minimize it in order to have like a better, prosperous Stockton. Otherwise, it's impossible because all the funds coming in and they're going somewhere else. I mean, doesn't solve the issue. So this is the root cause. It's just like a food. If you are not providing food to a family, you know how it's going to prosper, how these kids going to grow if you are not providing them with food. So the thing is, money is food. Like the city money, that's like that's for the whole city, the whole community. So we have to focus on that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Velez, the topic is corruption at City Hall.
Okay, corruption at City Hall. I think that's probably been a historic topic for Stockton. I don't think it's anything recently new to the forefront. What I would say about that, not having been in a city council seat or personally been in office at this point, from the outside looking in, I would like to have more accountability for outcomes of funding of programs. So what I've noticed in my fight for funding with my nonprofit is that the same organizations continue to get funding. When I've asked about outcomes for that, that's the missing piece to the puzzle. With regard to construction projects such as the Stockton shelter, we have bids going out where a construction company will get the bid, and then we've got change order after change order, which then increases the price, and the project is never completed. Like the Stockton shelter's $6 million navigation center. They didn't even budget for paint for that. So obviously there's going to be a change order. We need to be holding the agencies that are applying for the funding more accountable at the time of the request to actually perform on what they're being given. As far as funding for our police officers, I know that's another topic and I'm running out of time to talk about. But across the board, transparency, and that's one of the things I would like to create is a committee specifically focused on the transparency in our funding for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade.
Yes. So let's just look. Corruption is rampant. It's been running in the city, and it's been housed in certain websites. It's been housed with certain characters, and it's actually been set afire throughout the last several years. And we've seen it more recently with Stockton Unified School District. We've seen what happens when you have candidates who are pushed and ran and have their elections run by characters who wish to cause dissonance and wish to cause divisiveness. Once they get into office, it's like no holds bar, right? They have access to contracts, they have access to money, and we've seen what happened with the air purifiers during the COVID time, where we had some candidates who were just allowing these contracts to come into the district without any real review. And at the end, the district was stuck with the bill and there were no air purifiers. And so I don't want that. One of the things, I'm probably one of the most independent candidate that's up here. I have no endorsements from parties. I have no endorsements for special interests. I have ran an honest campaign. I have ran a grassroots campaign. And I promise to bring transparency to City Hall because I cannot allow that to move forward. There's been five mayors in the last 20 years. There has been instability, and there are characters in this community that wish to continue that instability to cause chaos. And when the chaos is happening, they sneak right in and rob the city coffers.
Thank you very much. Back to the far left there, Carlos, as we pan wildly among the candidates. Mr. Wright, so you know what the topic is corruption at City Hall. Is it there, and how bad is it?
So I've been talking frequently about having to slay the twin dragons of corruption and incompetence. Both will lose you money. Okay, it can be subtle, And when I say subtle, that might be like some of the candidates have talked about, same people getting funded all the time with no requirements, meetings held with people that are off the record, and then decisions are subsequently made that might benefit them. Or it can be flagrant, like Mr. Andrade mentioned, the IAQ air filter contract at Stockton Unified School District. Literally, it's cost the district $3.4 million, okay, that they're never going to see. That money's lost, okay? That is criminal behavior. Somebody needs to be held accountable for that. The AG has done an investigation on this. The DA here said he has done an investigation on this. And the FBI has done an investigation on this. Why don't we have results from those investigations? One of my day one things is demanding of the DA, the FBI, and the AG, what happened? Tell us. Somebody needs to be held accountable for this. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally on this topic, Ms. Fugazi. Don't forget that microphone.
Just writing my last minute notes. So the public wants and needs transparency and accountability. At times, there has been a shadow government operating at City Hall. And what I mean by that is you have somebody who is using their position from the bully pulpit in order to push their own personal agenda that doesn't benefit everybody in this city. It benefits very few, and it has nothing to do with the city, and we don't even vote on it. But yet, they raise money. All spending needs to be showed, needs to be communicated. We need to be able to see where that money goes and how it's spent. For example, money we have pushed through to an organization and then it comes up $1 million short. Well, they need to answer to not just city council, they need to answer to the taxpayers of the city and let them know where that money went. As well as kickbacks from contracts. It's happened and it's unfortunate. Those things need to be eliminated. And then Brown Act violations. So recently, there was a Brown Act violation, or one that thought was happening in City Council. There was an investigation. The people will never know the outcome of that investigation, and I think that's unfortunate, because they should know when there are investigations being conducted what happened in those investigations and what the outcome is and what we're doing to move forward.
Okay, thank you all very much. The topic of homelessness has come up numerous times, and that's not a surprise. And a lot of people in this town would tell you it's probably the biggest issue in this town. So we're going to start with Shaquille Ahmad. Let's talk about homelessness. What can the mayor and the... No, I think Christina went first. Oh, I'm sorry. Scott over here is keeping track, and he's directing. Yes, maybe it's appropriate. Maybe it's appropriate. We'll start with Jessica. Jessica, I apologize. Ms. Velez, homelessness. What can the mayor and the city council do to what's really a national issue too?
Obviously, this one is near and dear to my heart. I've been working in the streets for 3 years, as I've stated, through my nonprofit, providing support for the homeless, as well as attending city council meetings, private meetings with county supervisors, with city council, everybody involved. What needs to happen is we need to start a transitional village. We continue to fund the shelter model, which is basically a continual handout. The transitional village that I've been proposing for some time now is a basic stability option for our homeless community. As I said, not everybody is mentally ill or on drugs. And unfortunately, they all get lumped into that category, especially with Gavin Newsom's treatment over treatments proposal now. That basically says it all. I have entire encampments that I could literally pick up and move into a safe camping or transitional village environment. And that would clear up the streets very quickly. After we get one of those pilot programs started, it would be a no-brainer to continue it, small locations, and connect people to the resources that are unique to their needs. They are not incompetent or incapable. They are adults, and so many of them are just ready to get their lives back on track. But we have to have an understanding and listen to the affected demographic. The solutions I have are way more cost-effective than what we've been doing providing funding for shelters. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Andrade, what can the mayor and city council do?
Yes, so I will say this, that the city is limited in terms of what departments it has to be able to deal with the issue of homelessness and the unhoused. It's mainly law enforcement, and it's also raising money for housing, right? But the main thing that we need to do is, and Ms. Velez said it already, is transitional villages, safe campsites. We need temporary shelters. We have had close to just 300 shelter spaces in the city since the 80s, when we know there are a lot more unhoused and unsheltered people living in the streets. And especially after 2016, 2015 is when the homeless population peaked and spiked in number. And so as a city, we have to go and get these resources from the state and the federal government to build more shelter space, which I should say is also temporary housing, because we need to give our law enforcement the ability to be able to move folks from encampments, but also be able to stay somewhere that's safe and that can also provide services. The other thing we need to do is also invest in a sort of an alternative first provider system where we're not taxing our police officers with responding to homeless calls, which are rampant right now. And they're not always the best people you want responding to homeless situations. So I know we started something with CMC. It was a pilot program, and I love the results, and I think that should be something that's permanent that we should tackle. And also, the next 10 years is going to be very critical, because I believe the state, county, and the cities are finally getting their act together and are coordinating together. But you need a mayor that's going to push the state and push the county to make sure Stockton gets the resources it needs to be able to have a homeless solution that we need.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Mr. Wright, what can the mayor and the city council do to impact the homeless issue locally? Many would consider this a national issue, too. Cities everywhere are struggling with this very question.
No, it's absolutely a national issue, but we've got one of the experts on it right here just north of us in Sacramento, and Daryl Steinberg. He's been one of the leaders on developing solutions for housing the homelessness. Some of the candidates have talked about safe camping, safe parking sites. A lot of that was modeled around us in Modesto and in San Francisco and in Sacramento. Steinberg sets his mantra that the homeless have a right to housing. They have a right to housing, but they also have a responsibility to accept that housing when it's offered. So to me, I'm going to follow that mantra. It's the same one. So I think our housing element lists the right goals for solving the homeless problem. We got to increase our housing stock at all levels, increase the quality of housing stock, preserve that existing housing so more people don't become homeless, and then provide housing and services for those people with special needs. And that's some of what we've talked about, is those people that have issues with drug and alcohol, and there are some, probably more than 50%, I would say. There are also, as Ms. Velez said, many that don't have any issues at all. They just need housing. Okay, my top priorities would be to incentivize multifamily housing, because if you don't have housing, you don't have, if you have housing, you have fewer homeless issues. And incentivize multifamily housing, preserve our existing stock, and focus on the Call Stockton program, because that's what Mr. Andrade was speaking about earlier. We've got to have that non-deputized group that's able to handle the transfer of people from encampments to the housing. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Ms. Fugazi.
Okay, 3 things: intervention, transition, and reintegration. So when I talk about intervention, I'm saying, number 1, a low barrier shelter where you're at 60 to 90 days. Then from there, the next stage would be supportive housing. And then the third is transitional life program focused on sobriety, mental wellness, and work training. A great example of this is Gospel Center Rescue Mission, who has a 71% success rate for those that take advantage of the programs that they're offering there. Now we have SB 43, which is to create more beds for those that have mental health and substance abuse issues. But again, when we offer you the assistance, you then need to take it. And that's what this program, this SB 43, will do. But we need to have the infrastructure within which to create that. I would say the other thing is we need to have our own department that deals with housing as well as homelessness, with professionals who have successfully done that in other places. Orange County has a great program that they're doing down there. We do not need to reinvent the wheel. But for those who have the ability to go out and work, do not have a substance abuse issue, do not have a mental health issue, the city can have their own vouchers and create their own housing for those people to be able to get off the streets and into housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, Mr. Ahmed.
Thank you very much. This is a big issue going on, not only in Stockton, but all around California and then all around the world, basically. My thinking about this is, it's honestly speaking, I would say, a lot of people there are just asking me that, is this, do you have any solution for this issue? I would say yes. I mean, this issue can be, addressed. The thing is, I would say what we can do is, we can have some task forces going east, west, north, south, and I mean, we'll see, if the city has less resources, then what we can do is we can hire some volunteers, I know so many volunteers, they can volunteer for that. Then we need some social workers. I was a social worker. I worked with so many drug abuse rehabs with mental people, and I mean, it worked. So what I would suggest is that the city, they should have these workforces. I mean, these task forces, and they can go out to reach to these homeless people, try to convince them, motivate them, bring them to the shelters, and after that, give them all the, if they need some medical services, they need food or they need clothing, give them that. And with that, just enforce the local laws on them. So that way they don't have to go out, and I mean, mess with other people's properties and stuff. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. We're going to stay on the topic of homelessness. And Jesus, Mr. Andrade, you'll get the first question. How will you deal with the mandates of Senate Bill 43? Which expands the criteria for the detention, treatment, and conservatorship of people with severe mental illness.
Yeah, well, let me start by saying this. I think it's a great first step. I think when we think of homelessness, when we see homelessness in the streets, the first people we see and think about are those that are dealing with severe substance abuse disorders or with mental health. And those are the people that need the services and the most help. And I believe that it should be, to lack of a better word, mandated. Because if you're asking someone to get help, I don't know if they're going to be conscious enough to say yes. And I think it's inhumane for us to not do anything. Is this bill perfect? I don't think so. But is it a great first step? Absolutely. And I'm a supporter of it. The way as a mayor is, look, we're part of the big city coalition. We have to have that voice at the table at the state, to be able to make sure that is implemented the way it's supposed to and the resources are dispersed the way they're supposed to. But I also think the county has a major responsibility in this. And so my plan is to work with the county supervisors to be able to ensure that the county is also getting its fair share when it comes to the resources that will be allocated through SB 43. But again, I will say this. It's inhumane for us to do nothing and to continue to do nothing. These are the folks that need the most help, and they need help from people that care. And as mayor, I'll make sure that that's a priority of mine moving forward.
Thank you. Mr. Wright, on the subject of Senate Bill 43.
So a lot's been said on it already, but I would say, first of all, I would focus on the unbuilt projects because we have far too many beds that would result from those unbuilt projects. The Navigation Center is 170 some beds. The Pathways Project is around 300. That's almost 500 beds right there. Calaveras Quarters is another 80 apartments. That's still nearing completion. We have to get those built. We just completed our point in time count. Don't know what those numbers are going to be, probably until April or May. But I know from the last point in time count we did in 2022, there were about 964 unsheltered homeless in the city of Stockton. I think everyone thinks that's gone up. I don't know if it's gone up a ton over that amount because it seems pretty consistent. They're just moving around quite a bit because we don't have the shelter space. So focus on getting those built, and then we have to talk about the enforcement. I spoke a little bit earlier about working with CMC's program, the Call Stockton program, to make sure that the police aren't getting involved with moving people to these because they're needed for other issues. If we don't have police doing this, it is going to be much better for us. We also have to be careful of overreach. When we passed the 3 strikes bill, the end result of that was mass incarceration. And that didn't work for our society at all. It ruined families across the spectrum. We could have similar overreach here. And so we've got to be very careful about how we enforce this.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Fagauser.
Okay, so I already mentioned SB 43, and I would say the status quo is not working. What we've been doing for many years has not worked because our numbers have only gone up. We've seen it ebb and flow, maybe go down by a few and go up by a few, but the bottom line is we need to figure out where people are coming from. Do they live here? Are they from somewhere else? Can we reunify them with families and whatnot? But with SB 43, we are not alone in this. This is the county. The county has already delayed implementation of this for 2 years because we need to have these beds. They're the ones with behavioral health. They're the ones that have mental health services. CMC has their crisis vans. We need more of them. We need them to be able to go out 24/7 in order to meet people where they are. And if they are having a mental issue, if they are having an overdose, if there's something like that is happening, then those people, whoever it may be, even if it was my nephew, need to go into one of the facilities that is providing them with mental health and substance abuse programming. And we need to make sure we get our fair share because as we said over and over again, we're the largest city in the county, and oftentimes we are left standing there with no forward movement. We don't get funding. These other areas, these other cities get funding. And here we are just saying we would like to have a program of our own for the people that live in Stockton and not ship them around. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ahmad.
I would say, it's a good move, but the problem is that, we are having so many different laws passed, but the thing is there is no implementation. So it's like, basically like you have funds coming in, but the thing is, they're not invested in the people. I mean, we have so many funds in the past, so many years, I've been reading about it, and I've been seeing these homeless people different, they have like substance abuse, alcohol, and, different problems they're dealing with. The problem with them is, like we have to have some solid, concrete steps taken for them in order to put them in a position where they can just like be treated and they can be like, they can be put on a path where they can come out as a, like a good individuals. We can't just say or pass, things about measures about them, collect all the funds and everything, and then never spend those funds, and we don't see any improvement. I know like a lot of people are going to say yes on it, but then later on you will see nothing's going to change. So we need that practical thing, we need that practical work done to them. So we see outside to minimize the homeless people on the streets. Not like increasing day by day, and then we have all these funds and all these measures. Oh, we need this and we need that, and the county, they are just blaming the county, and county is blaming on the city. I mean, it's just a war of thorns, going nowhere. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Ms. Velez, on Senate Bill 43, your thoughts.
Okay, I have a lot to say, so I'm going to talk fast. First of all, drug addiction displays as mental health issues. A lot of these people, if they were stable, they would not be using drugs, because using drugs alleviates the reality of where you're at. Number 2, the projects. Navigation Center. You cannot cram 170 chronically homeless people into shipping containers. Pathways Project was supposed to be 300. I've already heard that it's at least 200, not 300 now. The Calaveras Quarters. That's all transitional age youth. So that has no effect on the mental health component in our homeless population. We need to stop trying to control people and empower them. Yes, there are cases of severe mental health issues. We do need a facility for those people, but the numbers are not as high as what everyone likes to think. I just took one of my veteran clients to her mental health appointment a couple of weeks ago. She needs one-on-one counseling. That is not available to her for 4 months because there is a wait. The county staff at behavioral health cannot keep their employees because they get trained and then they leave to go to the state jobs, which is a 3 times as high package for them to go there. So if we're going to spend $80 million and build this big detox and mental health facility out at the county, who's going to run it? Because if they cannot keep staff already at our regular behavioral health services, then who's going to staff that? Then you're going to run into concerns of quality of care in there. And we're out, I ran out of time.
That's okay. That's okay. You did get plenty of information. Yes. All right, we're going to change topics and talk about the other major issue in this town, and that's public safety. Mr. Wright, we'll start with you. Is public safety here better or worse than it was 4 years ago, and why?
Give me a second here. I'm
Sure,
trying to find my notes.
That's fine. That's fine. We're not trying to trick people or catch them too off guard.
So I'll take the unpopular point of view in that it is pretty consistent with how our crime has been for a long period of time. That stands true for homicide. Violent, aggressive crimes have grown in three particular areas. One was Alameda County, one was San Joaquin County, and another area was somewhere in Southern California. I believe maybe San Bernardino, but don't hold me to that. The issue with that was in the rest of the country after the pandemic, it's reduced, but it hasn't here. What's the reason for that? And we need to investigate that and find out why that is. It's not displaying itself in our homicide numbers, interestingly enough, Bill. Our homicide numbers have been in the same ballpark since our banner year, hate to call it that, in 2012 when we had 72 homicides. It's been within the 35 to 55 homicides per year level. We've got to focus on the crimes that people are upset about, and one of the big ones is retail theft. So I'm part of the Chamber of Commerce's task force that's addressing that right now. I sit on the League of California Cities Public Safety Committee. I have a voice that will go to the legislators and the governor on that, on how we refine Prop 47. We've got to get something to the voters because how Prop 47 exists right now isn't working.
Very good.
Thank you.
Ms. Fugazi, is public safety better or worse than it was 4 years ago, and why?
I will say that it is worse, and I will tell you why. First of all, I want to be completely transparent. I voted no on Measure A and yes on Measure B because I had a feeling that what was going to happen was what happened, which is we had less officers at one point. We had 346 officers in 2023 towards the tail end when we should have 485. Okay, so less officers. We're only going out on code blue, even though I know I've seen some officers out on some other calls, but that's kind of a free pass for criminals just to go out and do whatever they feel like. We have smash and grabs. We have carjackings. I had a woman just email me. She was at 7-Eleven at I-5 and Charter Way, pulled up with her grandson, 17 years old, went inside, and when she looked outside, there was somebody with a gun to her grandson's head. This just happened last Friday. Gun to the head, saying, open the car, take everything out. I'm clicking. She froze. She didn't know what she should do. She did call the police. 45 minutes, an hour later, someone finally came out from the department. But we need to arrest people. We need to cite people. We need our officers to enforce the law, no matter how big or how small it is, because I feel like it's just a progression of going up, up, up. These smash and grabs, they started maybe with something $5, just one person. And then they got 2 people together, and then 4, and then 10, and now we've got 20 people running into places. But, yeah, substations everywhere and community policing are the other 2 things I want to talk about.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ahmad, public safety, better or worse than 4 years ago?
Yeah, I would say, it's, like sadly, it's getting worse day by day. I've been in business for almost 20 years, and I've been seeing this, like even from that time, like I would say back in 2003 or 4, I started my business, small business, and I would see all these crimes, like at that time, when I look at it right now, I mean, it was better than today because it's getting worse and worse. And just like she said, like when you call up the cops, they will show up, like maybe an hour or 2 hours later, and everything will be already taken care of. It happened to me one time also, like when I was at my property, and this guy came in, and I told him not to lit up fire on my property. And what he did, he just took out a machete, and I mean, he was staring at me, And I was like, man, like what's that, And then when I called the cops, the cops show up. I told them where did he went, and it was right here in North Stockton, like in a nice area. And I mean, they did nothing about it. What I'm saying right now is like, just like she said, we need some substations. We need some more cops, and I mean, we have to control this. And it's all related to, just like I mentioned, the youth. We have no programs for the youths and stuff, So, I mean, the youths are going to the gangs and they are coming out, it's just like they start with a little crime. I've seen that. I've, visualized that. And what they do is, later on, they do some big crimes. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Velez.
So, yes, crime is getting worse in Stockton. I've lived in every part of this city, out south, out west, currently in the north, and the crime is everywhere. We have historically neglected our youth, as Shaquille stated, for generations. So we now have an entire culture of criminality. We have entire families that are engaged in criminal behavior. Lack of opportunity. Lack of youth programs for the parents and grandparents that are still involved in crime. So in order to turn all that around, we have to attack it from both sides. We have to have consequence for the offender, and after that consequence, there needs to be a mandatory rehabilitation. The criminal mind has to be rehabilitated with cognitive behavioral therapy. So if we don't start actually treating people for this, then it's just going to continue to grow. If we get the parent in a position to be a successful member of the community, then their child's going to see that example instead of seeing the parent going out and doing these smash and grabs. If our police department wasn't busy chasing homeless people around or present on displacements, then they would have more time to actually engage in fighting crime. The drug epidemic. 8 out of 10 of these runouts, I guarantee you the people are on drugs. We do not have an arrest history for people that are using drugs. They get let go all the time instead of being arrested and facing actual rehabilitation. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Jesus Andrade.
Let me just start by saying it's gotten worse. And, we've talked about retail theft. That's one of the major issues that has significantly increased, and it's gotten really worse over the years. But the major issue for me is gun violence. There are just way too many guns in the street, and there's just a lot of young people who are carrying guns. I recently, with my family, were a victim of gun violence. My son was delivering pizza, and he was robbed at gunpoint by 4 young youths. And the trauma that he experienced is real. The question for me as a parent is thinking about the kids. Had they pulled the trigger, where would I be at right now? But also, who are these kids? He said they were young. And I'm thinking, my God, we're just failing our youth by generation. And so I'm like thinking of what we're doing here in the city of Stockton. And we don't have any youth programs. We don't have any after-school programs. Our schools aren't doing the best job that they can to have our youth do something after school as well. And so I think we have to start investing in our youth, and we really have to tackle the issue of illegal guns, the trafficking of guns, and the sale of guns that's happening here in the city of Stockton and elsewhere. Because I don't want another parent to experience that, and I don't want another parent to experience that their sons are out using guns to rob people for money or for pizza in this case, whatever the case may be. Because these are young people whose lives would be changed dramatically in an instant. And so for me, there's just too many guns in the street, and we have to do something.
Thank you very much. We're going to stay on the topic of public safety, and Ms. Fugazi, we'll start with you this time. So, be as specific as you can. What can you do in your first year to actually affect change in this area?
Well, first of all, I want to make sure that our Measure A funds are going where they're supposed to be going. So I would say as that money comes in from the state, we need a line item in the budget that 65% is going there. Now, I know council just re-upped it, just renewed it for another 10 years. I kind of feel that was a mistake, and I will tell you because we had $58 million in unspent money. We had over 40 million in money that we got from Measure A, yet we didn't increase our officers by a single officer because we were at 346 and we were at 347 when we went through bankruptcy. But I would say, as we move forward with this, that we definitely need to make sure that we're doing whatever we can to retain and recruit. So we have so many officers right now that are on the cusp of being able to retire, and I can see why they might want to retire. It isn't the most thankful job there is. I mean, you're out there helping people, but you also get treated not so nicely. In other cities, they have higher numbers. Actually, they're fully staffed. Lodi's fully staffed. Lathrop's fully staffed. I think Tracy's fully staffed. It is a different mindset here, unfortunately, in Stockton, because we're the training ground. They get trained here, they get the best training as can be, and then they go somewhere else. I think we need to utilize more with technology and equipment. I think that we need to...
Thank you. Mr. Ahmad.
Okay. My priority is going to be that I'll hire more officers, plus, like open up some more substations if we can, all around, Stockton, north, south, east, west. First, I will focus on the red tag areas, like the areas where we have more crimes committed. And plus, just like I said, and I'm keep on saying this, all these things are related to youth. If you fix the youth, your crimes, your homelessness, a lot of them things, unemployment is going to be gone. If you have strong youth, strong foundation of a building, definitely you will have a strong economy, everything. You will have like a prosperous city. The problem with us is we're just focusing on these things, just like we mentioned earlier with the homeless people. On one side, we're helping the homeless, giving them money, food, and shelter. Then we just take them to the shelters, leave them out. When they come out, they burn people's properties. They, vandalize people's properties. I had, experienced that so much. My building, had been burnt like 3 times. So what I'm saying is we have to work with them. We have to work with these. Basically, they need help. They need, they have mental issues. They have drug abuse, substance issues. We can just work on them. We have to provide them, but we have to enforce local laws on them. Not just open them up and just leave them on the streets. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Ms. Velez.
So I would like to think that with what I'm doing in the community now, I'm already making an impact against crime. Some of the individuals that I have been able to assist in getting into rehabilitation programs and into Ready to Work, they self-admittedly were out doing these runouts at Walmart or at other stores. No longer committing crimes because they got the drug rehabilitation, because they got off the streets. We need to listen to our police department and listen to what the actual officers, boots on the ground, are talking about. I know that I work very closely with PD with regard to homelessness and also with regard to the drug epidemic. I have a zero tolerance for any drug deals. If I see somebody doing something, I already know. I've lived in Stockton. I've been in these streets for all my life. I know what it looks like when something's going down. So I make sure I take a picture and I turn that in right away. We all have to get involved. This community has to get stronger together, unite. And I think that we're at a point in our community now that everybody's fed up. Everybody's tired of it. I just witnessed these guys track down this guy that was involved in a hit and run and held the guy there until PD got there. Everybody's tired of it. So if we are able to increase peer engagement, like with Advanced Peace and the Office of Violence Prevention, being able to reach these individuals that are committing crimes on that level, I think that you'll see more success.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade.
Can you repeat the question, Tim?
What can you do in your first year as mayor to affect change in this area of public safety, and be as specific as you can?
Yes. The number one thing that I think about that I need to work with our city council members and our city manager is to stop the bleeding. We need to retain the current police officers that we have now. We need to incentivize them to stay here. If it's higher pay, if it's incentives, right? Other types of benefits. We cannot afford to lose any of the more officers. I think we have good officers, enough officers right now to actually make a dent into crime that's happening. We just need a real solid plan, a game plan to be able to do that. I also think we need to invest even more into our Office of Violence Prevention. These gentlemen and women know who are committing the crimes. They know where things are happening. Let's invest more into what they're doing. Let's equip them. Let's grow that office so we can prevent crime. Our police officers are there to keep the peace. But officer violence prevention is to actually prevent and work with individuals who will commit crimes or on the verge of committing crimes or have been victims of crimes. Also, like Advanced Peace, that's another organization that we should look at. The other thing, too, is we need to also look at AI, tech AI, to be able to look at the hotspots. There's about 6 or 7 hotspots where about 80% of violent crime happens. And I'll tell you one, it's in Southeast Stockton, around Ann Street by Van Buren. There's been about 10 or 8 homicides in the last 24 months. That's a hotspot. But yet there's no patrols, there's anything happening, there's no investigation, there's no community policing happening in that area, and we need to bring back community policing. So in my first year, we have to retain the police officers we have, institute community policing, and we got to look at AI and invest in our Office of Violence Prevention.
Thank you very much. And finally, on this particular question, Mr. Wright.
Okay, first of all, I want to correct my response to that previous crime question. Obviously, I was referring to the homicide rate when I made my initial response. And I think the rest of my response indicated clearly that I believe that violent crime is increasing because of all the data I provided for that. So coming back to this, what can I do? Number one is it's hiring, but it's most importantly retention. We've hired lots of police officers. Since 2017, over 600 officers. Okay, that's how fast they're leaving the city of Stockton. So the reauthorization of Measure A was absolutely necessary. We had to fix it so we could retain the officers we currently have. Now, I believe that we have to have, every big city is going through this. There are other smaller cities that, of course, have less crime. And some police officers want to go where there's less crime. Some officers don't. We've got to keep those that are in policing for the right reasons, that want to be here to quell crime. The other piece, the other thing I'm going to work on is working with the data analysis component of crime prevention. I've been told by the business community through my meetings with the Chamber of Commerce that crime reporting is very difficult in our city, that it can take upwards of an hour and a half to report retail theft. That's ridiculous. That needs to be streamlined. That needs to be down to a 15 to 20-minute report. That's all.
Very good. Thank you.
Now, this is a debate, correct? So I want to make another comment on this item. I don't want it to let go because...
point of order?
Just so you know, if you're going to do this, we're all going to do this.
Okay, no, but point of order. The initial ground rules said that if someone's name was mentioned, that we would allow
Well, I
for a
can't
response.
mention their name if they speak after me. So I would say that Mr. Andrade said we had enough. We don't have enough officers.
Okay, Christina, you're actually, you saved this for your closing statement. How about that?
I have another closing
Is
statement.
that a compromise?
Though. Well,
Because that was not how we all agreed this was going to happen. Did he mention Christina?
no, he did not.
Okay.
No, but she can go. She can review.
But everybody, okay, we'll give you 30 seconds.
Yeah, and then I get 30 seconds.
Then
Yes.
everybody gets 30
Okay.
seconds.
Okay.
Okay.
That's fine. It's okay.
Okay. So, Dr. Braga came from Harvard University. He's a crime specialist. He did a whole white paper on the city of Stockton and our crime. He said that we needed 3 officers per 1,000 residents. That would put us at 960 officers. We're grossly off of that. He said at a minimum we needed 2 officers per 1,000 residents. Would put us at 640. Police officers are a natural deterrent to criminal activity. If you don't see them on the street, if nobody's looking, you're going to do whatever you want.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ahmad, do you want to address this? You have 30 seconds.
Okay, definitely we need the officers because, like the people in uniform, it has a big impact on the criminals. That's for sure. But the thing is, that just like I said, we have to work out on our youth and try to have some programs for them. So in order to keep them away from the crimes, that's the main thing. The root cause should be addressed. That way, our officers are not going nowhere and everybody's staying here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Velez.
Okay, real quickly, since we're all getting another chance. Stockton PD does not have a narcotics team anymore. We are the hub of the West Coast for all trafficking because we are smack dab in the middle. It makes no sense to me why we have no more narcotics team working in this city, especially with the opioid epidemic. So while we need to continue the staffing, we need to make sure our police officers are happy and that they want to stay here by incentives on purchasing homes with lower mortgage rates if they stay in the neighborhood that they're serving. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade.
So I will say this. To get to 660 officers and beyond, you're going to have to raise taxes to a tremendous amount of percentage that beyond what we have right now. It's a budget issue. 660 officers is a budget issue. We have to be smart with what we have right now. I may have said enough, but we have to be smart with what we have right now, and that's over 300 officers. But I also said we need to invest in violence prevention, which is the other equation of this formula. And so that was failed to mention by Ms. Fugazi, that I also said violence prevention is very key, and we have to work with what we have right now. Unless Ms. Fugazi wants to raise taxes, it's a budget issue. We can't get to 660 right now.
Mr. Wright.
So Stockton is a city of 320,000 people. Okay, that's bigger than St. Louis, Pittsburgh, and Cincinnati. Process that. Those cities, St. Louis has 1,200 police officers, Pittsburgh has 900, and Cincinnati has 1,000. It goes right back to what Mr. Andrade was talking about. It's what you invest in as a state and a city. Right now, we don't have the means to do that kind of hiring. If we were able to do that, then we should, but we don't have those means.
Thank you very much. We're going to stay on public safety. Some have mentioned Measure A and whether or not it failed or not in bringing us more police officers. So is there a better way to deal with police staffing, Mr. Ahmad?
I would say, we're just talking about our police officers, we need more recruitments and this and that. The main thing is, again, it's the action, we have to train our officers in a way, give them some more advanced training, and especially from those cities, where the crime rates is lower, we have to, get some help from them as well. To give that to our officers, that way, we can just control some crime. So my opinion is, just like I told you, substations all over Stockton, these are the main things we have to focus on. Because if we have one station in downtown only, then, we can address all these crimes right away. So if we have them all over, it'll be very easy, if we can tackle the crime. And then also we have to hire some volunteers as well, We have to have this awareness in the community, in the youngsters, to stay away from crime, and try to give them a pathway to good life and stay out of crime. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Velez, we're talking about, is there a better way to boost our police force than Measure A, which some say was not very successful?
So I will throw it out there right now on jessicaforstockton.com. I have an extensive breakdown of my initiative with regards to the police department and how to bring more officers to Stockton, as well as make the ones that are already here happy and want to be here. Our police officers they deal with dark entities on a regular basis. They're always dealing with criminals. So with that being said, if they are overworked and underpaid and understaffed, they're not able to decompress from that, which will cause them to not be the best on their job. I think that we need to start being proactive, as Mr. Andrade mentioned, with OVP and advanced peace, utilizing, as I said last night in a different debate, if you want to heal the streets, you need to listen to the streets. They're the ones that know how it's functioning out there. So if we would start listening to the people that are actually in the streets and have been through that with the lived experience and utilizing that peer involvement, we're going to be ahead of the game instead of always being on the defense trying to catch up. I do like the idea of substations if possible with funding, but I think that the main point of everything in the city is that we need to change the culture that we've had for so long. It doesn't need to stay this way. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Andrade.
Yeah, so I'll say this about Measure A. It's mixed, right? The main success, or probably the only success it had, was for 2 years. And that was between 2018 and 2019, where we had close to 470, 480 officers, which was almost the promised amount that voters were promised of an additional 120. COVID hit, George Floyd hit. It was a national pandemic, a national movement around police brutality, and it led to the decrease of cadets enrolling into the academy. It's a nationwide thing that we're dealing with Measure A. So now you've seen less officers coming to Stockton, more officers moving out of Stockton, less people enrolling. But I think the failure was in the current administration. There was some money that was saved through not having an additional 120 officers, probably for about 3 or 4 years. What did we do with that money? Did we invest it in prevention? Did we invest it in youth programs? What did we do? We have to be smart. I love the police. I love our police officers. We have a great police department, but they're not always a solution. The failure in Measure A was a failure that the current administration, who had no vision with the current money to do some more prevention, to do some creative crime safety, crime fighting measures. And so to me, it's a mixed bag. Measure A will now be there for 10 years. As your mayor, I promise to make sure we use that money correctly, whether we get to 480 officers or not. That money will be used to reduce crime at all stages.
Thank you. Mr. Wright, we're talking about, is there a better way to fund a larger police force?
As Mr. Andrade said, Measure A worked until it didn't. Okay? 470 officers in 2019. In the 5 years since, we're down to 346. Now we've reworked Measure A to get those numbers back up. What happened between now and then? COVID happened, which led to the Great Resignation. The George Floyd protests happened, which made people look at police work as maybe not something they wanted to do. And we've seen those results in people applying to our academies. So it comes back to this issue of how do we keep our officers in place? Pay is a part of it, but officer wellness is the biggest part of it. They've got a hard job here. Other candidates have spoken to that. So we've got to be watching their wellness, their thinking, how they deal with the results of tragedies, both on the force and in the communities where they work. I don't believe substations are a good use of our resources. A police car is a substation. So it's not the question, again, of do we need a substation down there? No, we need officers down there, right? We need officers in particular areas of the city. They have all the resources that they would have at a substation in their car now. Technology has increased that far. So yes, keep Measure A, but continue to focus on officer wellness.
Thank you, sir. And Ms. Fugazi.
Chomping at the bit here. Okay. Measure A should be a restricted tax. Period. End of story. I am the only council member that said that it should be audited because, as our CFO showed, she said it was about $36 million per year over 10 years, which is $360 million. So $234 million of that, which is 65%, should have gone towards public safety. Did it? No, it did not. Okay. Our businesses are bread and butter, as well as some of our big businesses in this town. They are closing. They are going away. So you talk about taxes. Well, guess what? You look, we are getting more sales tax, but with these businesses going out of business, it does not help us. Okay. Everything begins and ends with safety. Do you want to be safe or not? You can't do anything else without that, okay? So substations, they're not for the officers. They're for the people. The people need to be able to go somewhere instead of, oh, file your report online. Oh, well, they stole my computer. How am I supposed to do that? Okay, well, come down to the station. Oh, they took my car. How am I supposed to get down to the station to do that? Well, an officer will be out. Maybe 6 hours later, maybe the next day. Eventually they'll be out. Our officers, again, are overworked and underappreciated. It needs to be a restricted tax so that it goes directly to public safety.
Thank you all very much. Our next topic is a shift of gears here. We're now going to talk community equity. Ms. Velez, we'll start with you. Would you agree the city has a history of some citizens feeling unnoticed and underappreciated? If yes, what can a city do? What can a city council do to change that?
Yes, I do think that. I think that we have a very diverse culture here. I think that the financial opportunities are not necessarily as available across the board for all of our different cultural communities. Something that Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry, and I should have noticed. Thank you.
I need to start over.
You can start over, yes.
Okay. Thank you. So yes, there is a lack of equality across the board for our different cultural diverse community. One of the things that I was just actually exploring the other day was the opportunity for, I'm trying to find it here, I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh. So anyway, what it is basically a community purchase of a particular property, and it's being done in the East Bay. It is the East Bay Permanent Funding, I'm sorry. Yes, it's a EPREC, and this allows the communities of diverse culture to be able to have restorative economics. This allows for more equality with regard to financing and housing systems to build collective wealth among historically disenfranchised Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and able to redistribute the resources in that community. I put a post of this also on my website so that if you're interested in learning more about that, you can do that. The other thing that I am also interested in exploring is non-extricative financing. This basically states that the lender will not ever exceed the wealth created by the borrower using the capital, and it's not necessarily based on credit scores either.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Andrade, what can a city council do?
Is that the full question?
No, because
right.
otherwise that would be a little too wide open. Wouldn't it?
Right.
Would you agree that the city has a history of some citizens feeling unnoticed, underappreciated, maybe left behind? Is an expression? If yes, what can a city council do about that?
So the answer to that is yes, absolutely. I actually grew up in a neighborhood that was left behind. For 18 years, I lived in South Stockton, where it was between county and city, county. It was a hodgepodge of just different stuff where you didn't have sidewalks, and you can just feel the disenfranchisement growing up. So part of my life story is that people decided to disinvest in South Stockton and to disinvest in the youth, disinvest in the people that live there. So one of my passions is to bring equity back to the city. One of the things we need to unleash as a city council is these vehicles that exist to be able to work in these neighborhoods, to bring economic development, community development, and to bring real change and real wealth generation. Those vehicles are community development corporations. Those vehicles are community land trusts, land banking. Those are three things that the City of Stockton is missing, and I think the city has a responsibility to fund those and help those get off the ground so they can bring the development, bring in the resources that are needed in these communities, because these are great people. My parents were great people who lived in South Stockton. My family is great people. My neighbors are great people who live in South Stockton. It's criminal what we've done for the last 40 plus years since the 80s when we started disinvesting in this area. As your mayor, I'll make it a priority, but I also know it's not just South Stockton. The city of Stockton has pockets everywhere now where there's disinvestment happening. And we have to look at what happened in South Stockton can happen to us as a city, because if you look at neighboring cities around us, we're getting left behind. Sacramento's economy is booming. The Bay Area obviously is booming, but even Tracy, Lathrop, and Manteca are also booming. So South Stockton is a red flag to what can happen in the city if we don't invest in our neighborhoods.
Thank you, Mr. Andrade. Mr. Wright, you're up next.
Okay, equity is the E in diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? And I bring that up because Councilmember Fugazi and I spent a lot of time working on our city's first diversity, equity, and inclusion ordinance. And we need to develop an enforcement mechanism for that ordinance. So that's number one. And then we'll be able to enforce this equity piece. There's been historical disinvestment in communities throughout Stockton. Mr. Andrade spoke to that previously. For every Sierra Vista or Conway Homes you have in South Stockton, you've got a Fox Creek or Kentfield in North Stockton. And it's the squeaky wheel problem. Okay? For decades, the squeaky wheel's got the resources. Okay? Well, now there aren't as many resources. So the squeaky wheels are everywhere. So who do you give it to? We have to make up for that past disinvestment. There's no doubt about that. How do you do that? You focus on the data. How are we spending our resources? Look at our budget. You know, President Biden has a great saying, don't tell me your priorities. Show me your budget and I'll tell you your priorities.
That's what it is. How do you spend those resources? Every department needs to be able to answer for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Fugazi?
Can I have his time?
No.
Okay, couple of things. So yes, I agree. We need to have our programs, our policies, and our ordinances that we've already put on the books. They need to be enforced. We need to have the commission that we created be developed and implemented. But I would say some of the issue that we have with this inequity is the fact that there have been developments. We have allowed developers to come in and do these master plans, and there have been promises. There have been design flaws. So I will tell you, Little John Creek, there is nothing in South Stockton where Little John Creek is. You have to get in your car to go get anything. You go to Western Ranch, yes, they have some things there, but they were promised way more than what they got. I also would say that we're not taking advantage of the SURF. And the SURF is California Economic Resilience Fund, which is specific for South Stockton. It's now called Thrive, the high road for an inclusive, vibrant economy. So what it's supposed to do is ensure that community voice and disadvantaged communities are centered in long-term strategic decision-making, cultivate deeper and more strategic collaboration across the 3 counties, because here in San Joaquin County, specifically in Stockton, it's the San Joaquin Community Foundation. I don't know where they're at. I don't know what they're doing, but this is a lot of money that we could be pumping into South Stockton. Ensure that the many investments and planning efforts affecting the region are aligned and fully leveraged for South Stockton, okay? And give them a seat at the table saying what is going on, types of engagement, in-person meeting, large coalition meetings.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Finally, Mr. Ahmad, on this topic.
Yeah, I will definitely say, yeah, it's the equity is not there because if you see, as a businessman, I've been owning different businesses all over Stockton. So, I mean, every area, like I would say, north area is a little bit better than the south, or way better than the south. Then, the east needs some attention, even the west also. So the thing is, there is no equity. Basically, they're just focusing on one place, if we see that, north is focused a lot and south is all ignored. And we have to have some kind of action in south side also. There are a community, there are residents, there are people, we have to give them all the opportunities, if you go on south side, hardly you can see anything but just crimes and just, homelessness and all them things, you can feel that there is basically, they're lagging a lot. They're behind, on everything. There is no shopping. There is no, the streets just right now, they're just worked a little bit on it. Otherwise, just in the past, I would say, 10, 15 years, we hardly see any progress over there. So basically, it's just too much, theoretical stuff, hardly any, I would say, hardly any practical work done. So we have to focus on that. Thank you.
Thank you. That wraps up our questions. It is now time for closing statements. And as we stated at the start, now we're going to go from right back to left, which means, Mr. Andrade, you have 1 minute for your closing statement.
All right. Well, thank you once again to the organizers, and thank you to my the candidates here today who showed up. I will say this. I stand on my record. I stand on my life experience as a trained organizer, as a public servant, and as a founder of a CDC, a founder of these these organizations that we need. And I'm running again because I have unfinished business. It's taken way too long to get the stuff done that we need to get done. We need economic development. We have a revenue problem here in the city of Stockton. We are taxed to death already. We're at the highest rates as a city, but you still don't see any changes. What we need is a mayor who can bring in real economic changes, who can revitalize downtown, who can bring tourism to the waterfront, who can revitalize our old neighborhoods, but also think about the whole city and be able to, oh, that was distracting. But anyways, so in closing, I just want to say I hope I earned your vote. You can look at my platform at jesusformayor.com. It's a seven-point platform. You need a mayor who has a 100-day plan from the moment they get there and then beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Andrade. Rick, what's the problem?
My mic isn't working.
Okay. Okay. Okay, very good. Thank you.
I play well without this.
Yeah, that's right. Miss Velez, your closing statement.
Okay. Stockton is important to me. I am not running for office for a secure job for my own advancement. All of the things that we've discussed tonight are possible, but only if we have someone who is operating from a point of selflessness and willing to listen and engage in real communication. No hidden agendas, no backdoor deals, not being beholden to anyone, creating cliques. We all live here. We all have something at stake. At the end of the day, each of us up here should still be fighting for this city, win or lose. I am not here publicly or privately representing anyone besides the community at large and fighting for what is right for this city. I believe that after you do your own investigation on what I've been doing in this community for the past several years, you will see that I'm moving with pure intention. I am not here telling you about what I'm going to do. I'm telling you about what I've already done and what I want to see happen on a larger scale. As your mayor, I pledge to bring a new perspective to the challenges we face. I am not bound by old decades of the same old approaches. I bring innovation, dedication, and a commitment to results. I believe in the collaborative approach that engages community and leverages the expertise of all of us with a unique knowledge and experience.
Thank you very much. Shaquille Ahmad, your closing statement.
I would just say that, as a social worker, I have achieved a lot. As a businessman, achieved a lot. I did a lot of stuff for myself and even for individual communities. But right now, I just thought it's the time, for my Stockton community, because they give me a lot. They give me, a lot. I have to pay them back. So for that, I just have myself, committed to some practical work. I want to do some practical work, not too much theoretical stuff, on paperwork, this, that. I would just want to concentrate on doing the job done. I want to do something for the lower middle class. I want to be the lower middle class people's mayor. I just want to see them, like day-to-day basis, or at least weekly or monthly basis, the small business community, all the other communities, all the communities, basically, they're my communities. I want to talk to them in person, so that way their issues can be resolved, taken care of. It's not only just like on paperwork, we did that. And I mean, that's what we've been seeing all these times. I grew up in that, and I had never seen practical work.
Thank you very much. Christina Fugazi, your 1 minute closing statement.
Thank you. As we all know, it's silly season, so don't believe everything you read or you hear unless it comes from one of our mouths. I would say that. Hopefully it's positive, not negative, because I don't do that kind of campaigning. But I just want to say I stand here before you with an unwavering dedication to this city and passion for this city. The same that I had for our children and our youth, I am going to do as mayor. So if you really want somebody who has that dedication, that wants to be held accountable, that wants to be transparent, I would say vote for me. I have that dedication. And I want every resident of Stockton not just to survive, but to thrive. Okay, it's too important for us to just keep going with the status quo. I'm a leader. I'm not afraid to take charge. I have a passion to see Stockton succeed, just like my students. And as your mayor, I won't make promises that I can't keep, but I promise to work with council and city management, introduce metrics to gauge our...
Finish your sentence.
I would say to gauge our progress.
Thank you. And finally, Dan Wright, your closing statement.
Thank you to Stocktonia, and thank you to, again, all of you who are watching this online. So my three key components, I'll come back again: public safety, improving housing and decreasing homelessness, and fighting corruption and incompetence throughout the city, not just Stockton City Hall, but all of our agencies. And so how do you fight corruption and incompetence? The main way is through transparency. We need to have a completely transparent city government. When I'm in the mayor's office, I promise you, you will know who's in and out of my office. You will know what my calendar looks like. Okay? I've had over 100 community office hours since I took office. Okay? That will continue as mayor. I will do it throughout the city, going into the communities to hear what people want to say to City Hall. And I will do town halls. We only seem to do those now because of gun violence. But we've got to do them on key issues that the community wants to talk about. And we'll do at least one of those a year, I promise. Thank you.
Okay, that wraps us up. Thank you all very much for participating in this debate. It's greatly appreciated. Nice work, all of you. And to folks watching this on the internet, thank you for watching the Stockton mayoral debate presented by the Stocktonia News Group. I'd also like to once again thank the candidates and Central Valley TV and the Delta College Digital Media Department, along with the United Way of San Joaquin County. And don't forget, the election is March 5th. Good night.
Thank you.